Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sorry for the inconvenience. Our package for internet data was finished, so we have to renew that. So we will take it as a separate topic as it is the part of the last chapter, endodontic materials, the mineral trioxide aggregate. A quick review, an amazing product which comprises tricalcium silicate, dicalcium silicate, tricalcium aluminate, tetracalcium aluminoferrate, calcium sulfate, and bismuth oxide. Chemically, it is identical to the Portland cement, which is used in constructing industry, except some bismuth oxide, which is added for the radiopacity, and it also modifies its setting reaction. Sorry. Yes, mineral trioxide aggregate. Now, manufacturing and setting of mineral trioxide aggregate is made by fusing together the constituents, grinding to form particles of clinkers like cement. A strongly alkalic material sets on exposure to water. Setting reaction involves an initial hydration phase with wetting of the particle surfaces with partial dissolution of the calcium sulfate. Setting commences through crystals of hydrated calcium aluminum sulfate hydroxide, which is also called as ytringite, form on the surface of the clinker particles through interaction with the tricalcium aluminate, which produces delay in the setting reaction, during which material is plastic and inserted for repair. It is also used as a root and filling material during periradicular surgery. Previously, we are using dental amalgam without zinc. So nowadays, this is a good alternative. The final phase is characterized by growth of calcium silicate hydrate crystals along with ytringite crystals between the clinker particles such that the material forms a rigid mass. Setting and properties. Reaction continues to require moisture as ordinary Portland cement requires and progresses over a number of hours until maturity. Setting produces a significant expansion by a mechanism similar to gypsum products, which improve the seal of the canals. If excessive, it should or could potentially result in root fracture. In its set condition, it is biocompatible and it can induce cementogenesis. Cementogenesis means production of cement. What is cement? Mean cementum. Cementum mean upper portion at the crown is covered by enamel, while lower portion where roots of a tooth, which is root, and in root portion beside of enamel there is cementum. So the cementogenesis is the process of cementum production or genesis of cementum, not the cement. Cement, our body is not producing, going to produce the cement. And used during apexification, already described, procedure on immature teeth damaged by trauma. Immature teeth mean the teeth with which have not developed their roots fully, and provide a good seal at the root material interface, not the material. Owing to its alkalinity, it is also antimicrobial. Clinical handling is complex. Complexity of canal anatomy is most challenging for clinician when trying to clean, shape, and then fill the shape. Contemporary thinking involves the use of combination of hand or mechanical instruments to prepare the canals along with an irrigant to remove debris and to disinfect the canals prior to filling the space in 3 dimensions with an inert material. Obturation is a 3-dimensional obturation because root canal anatomy is a 3-dimensional structure. So usually undertaken with either a cold packing technique or by warming the bulk fill material using a thermoplastic approach, and not acceptable to have a single cone of gutta percha sitting in a sea of sealant. You have to compact the cones. Cold packing or lateral condensation. The root canals comes to a natural constriction close to the apex of the root. Canal prepared by hand or rotary instrument. That constriction was exaggerated to create an apical stop. A gutta percha cone, which usually the master cone of matching taper and size to its instrument, used to create the apical stop, is coated thinly in the sealant of choice and inserted to the working length in the canal. Modified technique is to customize this master cone by softening tip of gutta percha point in the chloroform. Chloroform is easily available and not using nowadays for giving general anesthesia. It is nowadays used for softening the plastic materials, then inserting it to the length in the canal. This allows the softened gutta percha to distort to more closely match internally and acquiring exactly the shape of the root apex. This technique is only of value if a careful note is made of the orientation of the GP point in the canal during the customization process, as it has to be replaced in the canal with similar orientation during final seating. Now the spreader. Once the master cone is fully seated in place, a smooth tapered instrument which is called as a spreader used to squash the gutta percha against sides of the root canals. This creates a space in the canal into which an accessory gutta percha cone is inserted, once again coated in a thin film of sealant. Now the closing stage is lateral condensation process will continue until canal. All the process which I have described in previous slide is called as lateral condensation. Until the canal is full of homogeneous mixture of gutta percha and sealant. Both Resilon and beta phase gutta percha can be used with this approach. The other one is thermal packing method. Gutta percha is thermoplastic material. Adaptation to the walls of the prepared canals can be achieved with thermally softened material also. There are two basic technology used: softening of the material prior to its insertion into the canal and application of heat to the cold mass of gutta percha in the canal. So role of sealant, as we have heated and it is closely packed, but sealant is still required in the canal to help to achieve the best quality seal, the hermetic seal between obturation material and the canal walls. It is also possible to apply heat after insertion to a material that was placed in the root canal in a softened state. So heat can be applied to the material using external heating source in the form of a gun used to inject softened GP into the tooth, or an oven to soften the material prior to insertion. Oven softened materials are difficult to handle. This approach relies on a thermally stable carrier down the center of the gutta percha. Insertion: disc gutta percha on a stick is inserted into the canal by softening the gutta percha beyond its softening point. Carrier has a similar function to the spreader, pressing the material against the walls of the root canal. The alpha phase gutta percha should be used for these thermal preheating techniques. There are commercial versions of Resilon which can be injected into the canal using a gun system. Then thermomechanical compaction. Heat can be applied using a rotary instrument and friction. Thermomechanical compaction uses a tapered instrument which is shaped to have an action like Archimedean screw. The instrument is inserted adjacent to GP points in the canal and then is driven at relatively high speed in a clockwise direction. The action of the steel instrument causes frictional heating for the gutta percha, is driven down into the canal and forced sideways by the action of the compactor. Obviously, it is critical that this instrument is driven in a clockwise direction. Anti-clockwise movement of the compactor lifts the gutta percha out of the canal. Third mode, always there will be a third option. So application of heat after insertion of the gutta percha into the canal using a hot instrument. Historically, this was achieved with a steel plugger warmed in a flame. Contemporary practice involved the use of an induction heating mechanism with a custom instrument like plugger. Heat is applied with care to the gutta percha, which then condensed vertically and or laterally using a plugger or spreader. Through all thermal techniques, gutta percha points shows distortion on cooling, which impairs the seal. Application of forces to press material in canals must be restricted to duration of the cooling period to overcome thermal shrinkage. Thank you. Thank you very much. And with this, we have ended our course of Science of Dental Materials. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So, waiting for your valuable responses and comments. Allah Hafiz. Wish you good luck.